Tonight, global attention is once again fixed on the Middle East as tensions between the United States and Iran rise to their most serious level in years. What began as internal unrest inside Iran has now evolved into an international crisis, raising one pressing question across newsrooms worldwide. Is the United States and Iran heading toward a full-scale war? Over the past several weeks, Iran has been gripped by widespread protests. Demonstrations first erupted over economic pressure, soaring inflation, fuel prices, and unemployment, but they quickly transformed into broader expressions of public anger against governance and living conditions. Major cities, including Tehran, Isfahan, Shiraz, and Mashhad, have seen repeated clashes between protesters and security forces. As the unrest intensified, Iranian authorities responded with a heavy crackdown, deploying riot police, restricting movement, and enforcing strict internet blackouts across large parts of the country. Human rights groups and international observers report hundreds of deaths and thousands of arrests, though exact numbers remain difficult to verify due to restricted media access. Iran's government maintains that the situation is under control and insists that foreign actors are fueling the unrest. Officials in Tehran have repeatedly accused the United States and its allies of interfering in Iran's internal affairs, a claim Washington firmly denies. As images and reports of violence spread globally, pressure mounted on the United States to respond. Speaking to reporters, U.S. President Donald Trump issued some of his strongest remarks yet, warning that Washington is closely monitoring the situation and that very strong options are being considered. While Trump did not confirm any immediate military action, his language signaled a clear shift from diplomatic caution to open strategic warning. Behind the scenes, U.S. defense and intelligence agencies are reportedly reviewing multiple scenarios. These range from intensified economic sanctions and cyber operations to limited military strikes if American interests or allies are threatened. U.S. officials emphasize that no final decision has been made, but they stress that all options remain on the table. Iran's leadership responded swiftly. Senior Iranian military commanders issued public warnings stating that any U.S. attack, direct or indirect, would be met with immediate and severe retaliation. Iranian officials specifically referenced U.S. military bases across the Middle East, suggesting that the region could be drawn into a wider conflict if hostilities begin. Tehran also warned that Israel would not remain untouched if the situation escalates. At the same time, Iranian diplomats struck a more measured tone. Iran's foreign ministry stated that while the country is fully prepared to defend itself, it does not seek war and remains open to fair and respectful negotiations. This dual message, military readiness paired with diplomatic openness, reflects Iran's attempt to deter aggression while keeping the door to talks open. This balance between confrontation and diplomacy has created deep uncertainty. Analysts note that neither side appears eager for a full-scale war, yet both are engaging in actions that raise the risk of miscalculation. Military assets in the region are on higher alert, allies are being briefed, and regional powers are preparing for potential spillover effects. The situation is further complicated by Israel's position. Israeli defense officials have placed their forces on high alert amid concerns that a U.S.-Iran clash could quickly expand into a regional war. Gulf countries, hosting U.S. bases, are also quietly increasing security while urging restraint behind closed doors. For now, there has been no confirmed military strike. No missiles have been launched, and no official declaration of war has been made. However, the language used by leaders on both sides has grown sharper, and the margin for error is shrinking. History shows that conflicts of this nature rarely begin with formal announcements. They often start with one incident, one misinterpreted move, or one decision made under pressure. As of this moment, the world stands at a crossroads. One path leads toward diplomacy, back-channel talks, international mediation, and a gradual easing of tensions. The other leads toward confrontation, where retaliation could spiral into a conflict affecting not just Iran and the United States, but the entire Middle East and beyond. The coming days will be critical. Statements from Washington and Tehran will be closely analyzed, troop movements will be watched, and global markets will react to every new development. While war is not inevitable, the current situation remains fragile, volatile, and unpredictable. This is not just a regional story. it is a global one. And tonight, the question remains unanswered. Is this the final warning before war, or the last moment before diplomacy prevails? As tensions between the United States and Iran continue to rise, analysts and policymakers around the world are now focused on what could happen next. While no direct military confrontation has occurred so far, the situation has entered a highly sensitive phase where multiple outcomes remain possible. Each path carries serious consequences, not only for Washington and Tehran, but for the entire Middle East and the global order. The first and most alarming possibility is a direct military escalation. If the United States decides to move beyond warnings and impose limited strikes, whether through air operations, cyber attacks, or targeted actions, Iran has made it clear that it will respond forcefully. Iranian military officials have repeatedly stated that any attack on Iranian soil will be treated as an act of war. In such a scenario, U.S. bases across the Middle East could become immediate targets, pulling neighboring countries into the conflict. Military experts warn that even a limited strike could quickly spiral out of control. Retaliatory attacks could trigger counterattacks, creating a cycle of escalation that neither side initially intended. The presence of U.S. allies in the region, including Israel and Gulf states, increases the risk of a broader regional conflict. Once multiple actors become involved, controlling the pace and scope of fighting becomes extremely difficult. Another possible outcome is prolonged tension without open war. In this scenario, both sides avoid direct military confrontation, but continue aggressive posturing. This could include harsher economic sanctions, covert operations, cyber warfare, and proxy conflicts in the region. Such a situation would keep the Middle East on edge, with constant fears of sudden escalation. For Iran, prolonged pressure would further strain its already fragile economy. Sanctions and instability would likely deepen inflation, reduce access to international markets, and increase public dissatisfaction. For the United States, maintaining high military readiness in the region would be costly and politically sensitive, especially if tensions drag on without resolution. There is also the diplomatic path, one that many global leaders hope will prevail. Despite strong rhetoric, both Washington and Tehran have left the door open for negotiations. Reports of indirect communication and back-channel contacts suggest that quiet diplomacy may already be underway. In this scenario, international mediators could play a crucial role in easing tensions, reducing the risk of miscalculation, and bringing both sides back to the negotiating table. Diplomacy, however, will not be easy. Trust between the two nations remains extremely low, shaped by decades of hostility, broken agreements, and mutual suspicion. Any talks would require significant compromises, and both governments would face domestic pressure not to appear weak. Still, history shows that even the most intense standoffs can de-escalate when diplomacy is pursued seriously. Beyond the immediate conflict, the global impact of a U.S.-Iran confrontation cannot be ignored. Energy markets are particularly sensitive to instability in the Middle East. Even the threat of war has already caused fluctuations in oil prices, and a real conflict could disrupt supply routes, pushing prices higher worldwide. This would affect economies far beyond the region, increasing costs for consumers and businesses globally. International organizations and world powers are watching closely. Calls for restraint have come from Europe, Asia, and the United Nations, emphasizing the need to avoid actions that could trigger a humanitarian and economic crisis. Many countries fear that a war would not only destabilize the Middle East, but also weaken global security at a time when the world is already facing multiple crises. For ordinary people in Iran, the stakes are especially high. Ongoing protests, economic hardship, and the threat of external conflict have created an atmosphere of uncertainty and fear. Civilians would bear the heaviest cost of any escalation, whether through direct violence, shortages, or further isolation from the international community. As of now, the situation remains unresolved. No final decision has been announced, and no irreversible action has been taken. Yet, the warning signs are clear. Military alerts, diplomatic signals, and public statements suggest that the margin for error is shrinking with each passing day. The world now waits to see which path will be chosen: escalation, stalemate, or dialogue. What happens next will shape not only the future of U.S.-Iran relations, but the stability of an entire region. In moments like this, history is often decided not by grand speeches, but by quiet decisions made behind closed doors, decisions whose consequences may last for years to come.